The wedding that cost me everything. Hi, my name is Jennifer Morrison. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a senior financial analyst at a tech firm in Seattle. 3 months ago, my parents called me asking for money to fund my sister's dream wedding. Yesterday, I watched them declare bankruptcy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how my perfect family fell apart, and how I made sure they'd never take advantage of me again. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. My sister Melissa was 3 years younger and practically glowed in my parents' eyes. She was bubbly, creative, spontaneous, everything they valued. I was studious, career-focused, practical. Translation: boring. Jennifer will be fine, Mom always said. She doesn't need us like Melissa does. Dad would nod along. Our Jennifer's got her head on straight. Melissa needs more guidance. Guidance apparently meant funding. They paid for Melissa's art degree at a private college while I worked 2 jobs to afford state school. They bought her a car for her 21st birthday. Got a card. When she moved to Portland to find herself, they covered her rent for a year. When I moved to Seattle for my career, they asked if I'd researched the cheapest neighborhoods. I told myself it was fine. I was independent, successful. I didn't need their help. Then came the wedding. Melissa got engaged to Derek, a trust fund kid whose parents owned half of Portland's downtown real estate. The engagement ring probably cost more than my car. But somehow, my parents called me in January with an emergency. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about Melissa's wedding," Mom said, her voice syrupy with false warmth. Okay. I was already suspicious. Derek's parents are paying for most of it, but there are some expenses we need to cover. The bride's family is supposed to contribute. You know how it is. How much are you thinking? Well, Dad took over. We were hoping you could help out. Just $25,000. Actually laughed. You're joking. Jennifer, this is your sister's special day. Mom's voice went sharp. The wedding of her dreams. Derek's family is spending over $200,000. We can't look cheap in front of them. Then maybe don't agree to expenses you can't afford, I said. We raised you better than this selfishness, Dad snapped. Family supports family. I felt something crack inside me. Family supports family. The same family that forgot my college graduation because it conflicted with Melissa's art show. The same family that skipped my promotion dinner because Melissa had a bad breakup and needed them. But I was tired of fighting. I'll think about it. We need an answer by next week, Mom said. The deposits are due. Thought about it. I really did. $25,000 would drain most of my savings. Money I'd painstakingly built while paying off student loans they'd never helped with. But maybe, just maybe, this would finally make them see me. Value me. Appreciate what I'd accomplished. I was such a fool. I transferred the money on February 1st. Mom cried happy tears over the phone. You're such a good sister, Jennifer. Melissa is so lucky to have you. Will you tell her I'm the one who helped? I asked quietly. Of course, sweetheart. She'll be so grateful. Melissa texted me 3 days later. Thanks for the wedding contribution, I guess. Mom said it was the least you could do since you never help out. The least I could do. I stared at that message for an hour. Then I decided to let it go. The wedding was in June. 4 months away. I'd go, smile, celebrate my sister, and maybe after this, things would be different. In March, Mom called about the bridal shower. We're doing it at the country club Derek's mother suggested, she gushed. It's going to be beautiful. 60 guests, seated brunch, mimosa bar. Sounds lovely, I said. We need you to cover it. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear to stare at it. Excuse me. The shower. It's traditionally the maid of honor's responsibility, but since Melissa chose her college roommate, we thought you could still contribute. It's only $8,000. Mom, I just gave you $25,000. That was for the wedding. This is different. Jennifer, please don't make this difficult. Melissa's been under so much stress. Hung up. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my mother. She called back immediately. Then Dad called. Then Melissa called, crying about how I was ruining everything, how I'd always been jealous of her, how I couldn't stand to see her happy. I paid for the bridal shower. April brought the bachelorette party in Cabo. Guess who funded that? May brought emergency alterations to Melissa's dress after she decided the original designer just didn't get her vision. Another $4,000 from my rapidly depleting savings. By the time June rolled around, I'd contributed over $40,000 to my sister's wedding. I'd canceled my own vacation, pushed back buying a condo, and maxed out my credit card for a family that treated me like an ATM. But I told myself it would be worth it at the wedding. They'd acknowledge me, thank me publicly, show me I mattered. The wedding was spectacular. Held at a vineyard estate with 300 guests, crystal everywhere, a live orchestra, flowers that probably cost more than most people's cars. Melissa looked like a princess in her custom Vera Wang gown. I wore a dress I'd bought on sale and sat in the third row, behind Derek's cousins. During the reception, Derek's father gave a touching toast about the joining of families. My father gave a speech about how proud he was of Melissa, how she'd grown into such an amazing woman, how Derek was lucky to have her. He mentioned me once. And of course her sister Jennifer is here somewhere. Somewhere. I smiled through dinner, smiled through the first dance, smiled as Melissa threw her bouquet directly away from where I was standing. Then came the photo session. The photographer gathered the family for formal portraits. Parents with the bride and groom. Extended family shots. The whole production. Okay, now just the bride's immediate family, the photographer called. I stood up from my chair and started walking over. My mother's hand shot out. Jennifer, sweetie, you can sit this one out. We want to keep it intimate. I stopped walking. I'm immediate family. We're just doing parents and Melissa. You understand. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I paid for this wedding, I said quietly. Jennifer, don't make a scene, Mom hissed. This isn't about you. Something inside me didn't just crack. Shattered. I walked out of that vineyard and drove home in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in my apartment and stared at my bank account, watching the numbers that represented years of hard work, sacrifice, and careful planning. All gone because I'd been stupid enough to believe my family would ever see me as anything more than a resource to exploit. That night I made a decision. The next morning I called my boss and took a week of personal leave. Then I gathered every receipt, bank statement, and text message related to the wedding expenses. I'd been meticulous about documentation. Occupational hazard of being a financial analyst. Then I called the one person I knew would understand. My Aunt Patricia, my father's sister who'd been estranged from the family for a decade after my grandmother's estate dispute. Jennifer. She sounded surprised. I haven't heard from you in years. I need legal advice, I said. And I think you'll want to hear this story. We met for coffee. I laid out everything. The years of favoritism, the wedding expenses, the exclusion from family photos. I showed her the documentation. Patricia's expression grew harder with every detail. Your father hasn't changed a bit, she said finally. Did they ever tell you what happened with your grandmother's will? Just that there was a disagreement. Your grandmother left her estate split equally between your father and me. Explicit instructions. Your father convinced her lawyer to contest it, claiming she'd verbally promised him more because he had children to provide for. He ended up with 70%. I got 30% and a destroyed relationship with my brother. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. He did the same thing to you. Worse. He used family loyalty as a weapon. Sound familiar? Did. God, it did. Patricia leaned forward. Here's what you need to know. Those wedding expenses. If they were given under false pretenses or with the promise of consideration you didn't receive, you have legal options. It won't be easy, but I know an excellent attorney who specializes in family financial disputes. I don't want to sue my parents, I said automatically. Then I stopped. Why was I protecting them? Actually, maybe I do. Think about it carefully, Patricia said. But Jennifer. Sometimes the only way to make people see what they've done is to stop enabling them. I thought about it for exactly 10 minutes. The attorney, Margaret Chen, reviewed my documentation with sharp eyes. "This is clear-cut financial exploitation," she said. "You have written requests for specific amounts, promises of recognition and inclusion, and evidence of exclusion. We can pursue this as fraudulent inducement." What does that mean? They induced you to give money under false pretenses, that you'd be valued as family, included in family events. Instead, they systematically excluded you while taking your money. We can sue for return of funds plus damages for emotional distress. Will we win? With this documentation? I'd be shocked if we didn't. But Jennifer, be prepared. This will destroy your relationship with your parents and sister. I thought about being called somewhere. About Melissa's text saying it was the least I could do. About 28 years of being the forgotten daughter. When can we file? We filed the lawsuit 3 weeks after the wedding. I had the papers served to my parents while they were at brunch with Derek's family. Petty. Maybe. Satisfying. Absolutely. My phone exploded. Mom called 12 times before I answered. "How could you do this?" she shrieked. "We're your parents. And I'm your daughter," I said calmly. "The daughter you've used as a bank account for years. We never forced you to give us anything. No, you just emotionally manipulated me and promised inclusion you had no intention of providing." Margaret says that's called fraudulent inducement. Margaret, you hired a lawyer. Jennifer, this is insane. What's insane is spending $40,000 on a wedding I wasn't even important enough to be photographed at. Dad grabbed the phone. "You drop this lawsuit right now, or you're out of this family." "Dad, I've been out of this family my whole life. You just didn't realize it because I kept paying admission." I hung up and blocked their numbers. Melissa tried a different approach. She showed up at my apartment crying with Mom in tow. "Please," Melissa sobbed through my doorbell camera. "I didn't know you felt this way. We can fix this. We're family." I didn't open the door. "You thanked me by saying it was the least I could do. I'm doing even less now." "Jennifer, open this door right now," Mom demanded. "We raised you. Better than this." "No, Mom," I said through the intercom. "You didn't raise me at all. You just expected me to fund Melissa's life. I'm done." The legal process took 4 months. Discovery was brutal for them. We subpoenaed their financial records and found out they'd been lying about their money troubles. They had over $60,000 in savings they'd hidden to avoid paying for the wedding themselves. They'd planned from the start to manipulate me into funding it. In depositions, they couldn't explain why I was excluded from photos, why my contributions were never acknowledged, why Melissa texted what she did. Their attorney advised them to settle. They refused. Pride, Patricia said. The same pride that destroyed her relationship with Dad. We went to trial. It was ugly. The judge was not sympathetic to parents who'd systematically exploited their daughter's desire for approval. The verdict came in November. I was awarded full restitution of $42,000 plus $20,000 in emotional distress damages. The judge's statement included language about unconscionable family exploitation that made my mother cry in court. My father stood up and pointed at me. "You'll regret this. You'll die alone, and when you need us, we won't be there." The judge threatened him with contempt. I felt nothing but relief. The money hit my account in December. By then, I'd already heard through Patricia's network that my parents were struggling. Turns out, they'd taken out loans against their house to maintain appearances during Melissa's engagement. The wedding costs they'd hidden. Credit card debt at 20% interest. My lawsuit settlement forced them to liquidate assets. Last week they filed for bankruptcy. Melissa and Derek are still married, though Patricia heard through friends that Derek's parents weren't thrilled about the lawsuit publicity. Apparently, it's not classy to sue your family, even when they deserve it. I don't feel guilty. I finally went to therapy and learned what I should have known years ago. I was the scapegoat in a textbook narcissistic family system. The responsible child who could never do enough. Always chasing approval that would never come because the game was rigged from the start. Today I'm putting a down payment on a condo. It's beautiful. 2 bedrooms with a view of Elliott Bay. I'm also planning that vacation I cancelled, a month in Japan next spring. My parents tried to reach out through relatives at Christmas. Aunt Patricia fielded the calls. They wanted to reconcile now that they needed help again. I sent a message back through Patricia. No. Sometimes I think about that vineyard wedding, about standing alone while my family posed for pictures paid with my money. I think about how small I felt, how invisible. I'm not invisible anymore. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, you are not obligated to fund other people's dreams while your own crumble. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect, reciprocity, and genuine love. If your family treats you like an ATM, you have permission to close the account. I finally learned that the only approval I needed was my own. And you know what? I approve of the woman I've become, the one who finally said enough.